Welcome to the Church Safety Guys broadcast with hosts James McCarvey, Paul Buckner, and Mike Scully. Together, they make up the Church Safety Guys. Their mission to inspire, influence, and impact church safety teams. Join us for the next hour as we talk about all things church safety and security. Don't forget to like our Facebook page, join one of our church safety and security communities online, and share this broadcast with your church.
Well, good evening and welcome to the Sunday night broadcast of the Church Safety Guys. I am James, and I am joined by my cohorts in crime, Mike and Paul.
Evening.
How are you guys doing?
Better than there you go.
Yeah, I just touched down in my driveway from a church business meeting that was scheduled, so I'm like still messing with stuff in the background. But if you are just joining us or joining us at a later time on one of the streaming platforms or YouTube, feel free to like and subscribe. You can click that subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner, and then visit our Facebook page, Church Safety Guys. You can, if you click like on that page, it'll send you updates, broadcast updates, information, different things like that. And as always, you can always visit us at churchsafetyguys.com, where we have introduced a new website. I don't have a cue for trumpets or drums in the back here. Sorry. But you will find a much more user-friendly website. There are a few things on the last one that really frustrated me, and a shout out to Jason in Georgia, because he has gone behind me and fixed a lot of things. No, we both have been working on it quite a bit, so definitely appreciative of his help. So if you have the opportunity, check it out. We actually have certain times during the week we do have now a chat feature, and that's one of my pride and joys with it. Because when you go there now, if you're not finding something or if you have a question, you can click on that little icon in the lower right hand corner, and it'll pop up and it'll say, "How can we help you?" And just so you know, if you're watching or listening and you're like, I don't want to talk to somebody that's from, like, I don't know, South Korea or North Korea or something like that.
Depends on who from North Korea. There's one guy I'd like to help you.
It actually comes to my computer. So you are actually talking to a U.S. citizen, an American, and me, one of the Church Safety Guys. So it's
just so you folks know, full disclosure, English is still his second language, so bear with him. But
I was gonna think, I was like, what, are we launching a bot tonight? And it's gonna be the church safety guy robot, and it just pop your questions in and
well, that might be the next thing. Give me a week and we'll come up with some kind of idea.
Yeah.
You get automated ordering at McDonald's now, so why shouldn't you have like automated church safety?
I'm just saying that's not a bad idea.
I think we get a lot of false positives on the that doesn't look right.
These are deployed.
Yeah, I love this. This just shows our audience. So, we're already getting hecklers. I feel like the Muppets, whenever we do a broadcast, if you remember the old Muppet Show, I feel like we get all the time the two guys sitting up in the balcony. Waldorf and I forget the other guy's name, but Dave Johnson just posts, "Can I send a chat at 2 a.m.?" Well, you can send a chat, Dave, but whether it's going to be answered or not is probably not likely. But I'm pretty sure have my cell phone number, so you literally can call me at any time.
Call him late. Call him a lot.
Yeah, just because you call me though doesn't mean I'm going to answer it, right?
Yeah. Very, very, very quickly. I always enjoy our pre-show banter. I had a couple that I know that came to my church not knowing that it's my church. I've been there going on 2 years. And in the lobby, I walked up, and of course, I teased them a little bit and said, "Boy, here's a suspicious looking group right here." And of course, they were very keenly interested. Their first question was doctrine. Their second question was where things were in the church. Their third question was the church service times, and their fourth question was are the folks who volunteer in the nursery and in the children's ministry areas, are they background checked? And if you think about that, literally, guys, half the questions they asked were safety related.
Sure.
And we've come so far, guys, even just in the last 3, 4, 5 years, right? And we talk about this, the culture is changing, and it's kind of like that frog being boiled in the pot. I was aware of it because they were new to our church and asked the questions. And I love those questions because they wanted to be fed spiritually, and they wanted to know where things were, and they wanted to know when our services were. But they were like, "Hey, what's the service times?" And all right, what's the criteria by which people serve? And I loved that. So I think that the culture is changing for the better.
Yeah, I mean, I see article after article of the top 3 or top 4 things that folks look for in new churches, and I think number 3 is what are the safety or security precautions and that the church has in place for mitigating, disaster or emergency situations. And then usually the fourth question is, what do you do for a background check with the kids ministry, or how do you screen, your kids ministry folks from, infant nursery all the way up to, to the youth group. And you're right. It is a sign of the times. It's kind of funny. My church knows by now, like when we have certain people jump in and serve, and I see somebody new, when they're introducing them to me, they usually say, "And we're doing a background check. The background check is already being processed." So I'm just like, I didn't even ask. What?
Didn't have to.
Yep, table stakes.
But for sure. So if you're joining us tonight, feel free to list what church you're with, where you're listening from, and then certainly if you have any questions for us tonight, we'd love to get to those if we have time. We have a special guest with us, and I'll go ahead and bring him in. So JD Verhoeven, and he is actually with Concilium. Except right now we're just seeing a black screen.
Tonight's episode will be darker than our normal topics.
So I'm trying to figure out if... Oh, there he is. I think his camera might have locked up on us.
Oh, no. Do we have you on audio, JD?
Wow, that was weird. We actually had him a second ago.
This reminds me of a Zoom meeting.
Yep.
Right? Yeah, I don't know what happened.
Well, while we're trying to get him in there, I'll share an interesting take from my morning today. So we had our service, and we had a couple come in, kind of disheveled, not exactly super put together, a little bit of a trench coat on the gentleman and a bag with the woman, more of a backpack style. And they started kind of wandering, and they kind of brushed off the first greeter and just kind of walked in and started exploring, which not necessarily terribly out of the normal, but trench coat, of course, caught one of my guys' eyes and said, "All right, that's a little out of place." And they started wandering the hallways and going down a longer hall and checking out things. Well, then they're asking about the kids' services. And I'm coming out. I happen to walk out of the kids' area and immediately kind of see them walking. I'm like, all right, we just cleared and completely shut down the kids' room. There's no kid. And yet her backpack was a pink kid's backpack. And I'm like, all right, why does a grown woman have a kid's backpack and no kid? And so we followed them, and they kind of split up, and they're acting shady the whole time. And we followed them right into service. Then one split off, and I'm like, okay, great. They're gonna leave this bag in service, and we're gonna run into this. Or what's going on? So they still acted weird most of service. We started putting proximity closer to them. They ended up leaving before the end of the service, but with no incident. But it just was weird from the get go. Almost like they were just casing the place and either didn't decide to do anything or just were odd and felt out of place. But it was good because we had a couple of different people pick up on them. And then the big piece was the backpack that just was out of place. And not just a backpack, a kid's backpack with an adult and no kid.
I love the fact that you guys not only pinged it, but you guys showed them lovingly that you weren't a soft target.
Right. So, yep.
Yeah. Well, I know a lot of times, like homeless shelters, like we sponsor a homeless shelter in Columbus, and we will give out kids backpacks. Or if somebody's homeless, a lot of times they'll grab one just because it's a backpack. But yeah, I mean, we had a similar, I think it was about a month ago, we had a similar couple come in and it was kind of weird like that, where it was just red flags all over the place. So definitely better safe than sorry.
Exactly. Well, the proximity to Easter also strikes me more in the sense that was this a pre-Easter kind of review of the procedures and what can they find out and what can they see, and will we see them come back or will this just be a fluke? So we'll see, but it was an interesting morning to say the least with the heightened awareness.
We're going to talk about that next week. We're actually we're going to chat about Easter preparations and some things to look for, and we have another special guest hopefully coming on the broadcast. But yeah, absolutely. More people, I think churches this year are going to see more people in attendance because of COVID and coming out of COVID. And I know, like we're doing an Easter drama, and it's basically a 2-hour story of Christ's life and from birth to resurrection. And, I've talked to numerous people that are like, you guys are doing this in person, right? You're not going to have anything online. So I think people are getting a little done with that avenue. But anyhow, hey, JD, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Awesome.
We're good to go now.
All right. So you're with Concilium. And we met through, actually, I think we met through John Leo Riley. Is that correct?
That's right. Well, I will tell you something I was going to mention when we were before the meeting started. I actually started to type in the words church safety into my Facebook search bar around the first week of January, and your result came up immediately. I clicked on it, poked around a little bit, found that John had been on the show.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I filled out, I don't remember the exact sequence, but I got a hold of John. I said, what do you think of these guys? Should I ask to be on the show? He's like, oh yeah, do it and use my name. And so that conversation was going on simultaneous with our conversation with me having filled out the contact form. So
James, make sure we slip John his usual fee for bragging us up.
I'm not. Yeah, I was going to say I'm not paying him enough, I guess. But
so you got the algorithms working for you on Facebook, and then you've got John Riley working for you too. So.
Nice.
Well, we met John through Simon Ozama.
Nope. Ozamo.
Ozamo. I'm sorry. He's gonna rake me over the coals for
Somebody's laughing hysterically right now.
But we met John through there, and of course we've done last year. We've had him on a couple of times, and he actually did one of the forwards and helped with the book To Protect and Serve, the law enforcement devotional we did. And he and I were talking this week. He's doing a police conference in Ohio in June, so we're trying to coordinate schedules of having dinner and actually getting to meet the first time in person, which will be fun. But we've corresponded a lot over the last year, so good Good time. So, drive us down that road. What is Concilium? What do you do? How did you get started in it? And we'll go from there.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for having me on. Again, as I've told you in our correspondence, I've watched a number of your episodes and have already benefited from your ministry in my own role as a church safety team leader. But in Concilium, I'm the vice president of analysis, and Concilium is an organization that's had an international focus for most of its existence, but we are working now more domestically. In addition to continuing to expand our international reach. We're a Christian nonprofit of veterans, peace officers, analysts, missionaries who live throughout the U.S. and Canada, also in Thailand, Kenya, and the Republic of Georgia, actually. So we're a global organization. We were a virtual organization before it was cool. Certainly have been doing lots of Zoom meetings and lots of phone calls for a very long time, very similar to the three of you and how you got to know each other. I can definitely relate to that history. But we use security training, open source intelligence analysis, and crisis management and member care to build capacity and resilience in the gospel advance. And our vision is to see believers all around the world involved in gospel ministry with boldness, legitimacy, and competency. I started out producing open source intelligence for a different organization working for missionaries. I'd been doing this for several years when one of my top clients and my mentor, Scott Bronner, and I decided to start Concilium as a standalone organization that had security practices and skills and functions at its core, but its impact was for, like I said, for gospel advance. Scott is a former Army Ranger who became a youth pastor, who became a seminary faculty member, who started a youth missions organization, a missions training and discipleship organization. And when he started taking youth and college students to places like Darfur, northern Iraq, and Afghanistan in the early 2000s, he realized he needed to reach back into his Ranger kit for good skills that would be applicable to those kids, of course. And so he started selecting and deselecting the right skills to apply to global missions. And his purpose in all of this was to use both the act of going on a mission trip itself, but also the training process of getting ready to go to contribute to the students' discipleship. Not just their own spreading of the gospel overseas. So he developed a theology of risk and a doctrine of security in the context of ministry, and again translated a lot of soft and some hard skills into what's appropriate for this overseas missions environment. Eventually, a major missionary sending organization bought his ministry and hired him as their director of risk management. And that's how he and I got connected, was through that organization. So when we later started Concilium, our training was built on biblical principles for accepting risk in pursuit of the Great Commission, and responsibly warning and advising about threats, of counting the cost of obedience the way Jesus instructs us to in Luke 14, and of wisely stewarding people and resources. We teach that Romans 12, 1 and 2 need to be applied to security as much as any other area of life, and our minds need to be renewed as we view something that is typically secular and translate it into a ministry context. We believe that fear, naivety, and recklessness are all mindsets. If those are dominant mindsets, those are all biblical. So we look to work around, get past people's fears, make sure that they know how to manage their fears, make sure they're not being reckless, and make sure they're not being naive. And above all, we believe that the greatest commandment, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And then the second one is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. If you aren't focusing on that first, then your pursuit of the Great Commission is vulnerable to flaws, is vulnerable to error. And really everything else that you do in ministry is vulnerable if you're not putting God and His Word first, and then loving people as you go about doing that. And then something that we say over and over again is the gospel is our highest value. Safety actually isn't. The gospel is our highest value. So when I started helping build my church's safety team several years ago, it was with these principles in mind. And then my background was in analyzing threats and incidents around the world. And so when I'm making this transition, or rather looking for ways, how do I apply my core skill sets to church safety team in a church that had never had a safety team before? We basically went from having a person assigned to guarding the main door into the children's area with a lanyard that said security. We went from that almost overnight to, well, now we are assigning a pre-existing deacon. We reoriented our deacons and assigned them to service categories. That was something that our new pastor had kind of telegraphed when he first came. And about a year and a half later, he and the elders made that move to reassign the existing deacons to service areas, task areas. And so one of those deacons volunteered to take security, and then immediately started recruiting a team. And I tried not to appear too eager to volunteer. It was the sort of thing I've been waiting for several years, been waiting to happen. I had lots of experience writing about conflict, terrorism, and crime issues all over the world from a 10,000-foot level. But then I knew that I'd have to adapt that to serve my church on a local basis. So I started going on ride-alongs, collaborating with local police friends, and learning about local crime, about violence prevention, about how to analyze information for the benefit of the church. Basically started putting a little more intentional effort into some of the observations that I'd already been making throughout my life, and that is learning the security landscape in my city, in my metro area. When Concilium made this, we made a simultaneous shift about 2-3 years ago, and it's definitely stretched us, and we don't try to do more than we can handle as far as our manpower and our bandwidth. But given our core doctrines and given the geographic scope of the Great Commission, which is completely global from outside my door to the other side of the world, we just decided that we needed to move in two directions simultaneously out from this focus on Western missionaries. And so we've started focusing internationally, additionally on local Christians and non-Western missionaries. And then here in the States, reaching out to local churches, both in support of their short-term missions, but also in support of their church security. And again, it was that continuity of the Great Commission. We wanted our core doctrines to be to stretch far enough to match the Great Commission.
Wow.
And our church outreach, because I was the one person at the time that was really already looking this direction, instead of diving into the training market, which there's so many trainers out there, we decided to go with analysis instead and start putting out a written product called Insight Digest. And we want to help churches learn from real life criminal incidents that occur at churches and during their activities that involve church property and people, to learn about different types of criminal threats and trends, to understand how security in the context of ministry fits into the church context specifically, and then to see how all of this connects to the mission of making disciples locally, nationally, and globally. We do believe, and this is, I think from day one, I figured out that we had a connection here on the disciple making, using your church safety team to make disciples within the team, but as well as to actively help your church making disciples. We think church safety teams need to be actively advancing the gospel within the team, within the church, community, nation, world. And of course, Paul, you're a chaplain, so
as is James. This is so much in our wheelhouse. This is we eat, sleep, and breathe it. I'm over here going, dang face down.
I think that I might be mistaken, but I think Mike and I wrote a book about that not too long ago.
Yeah, I'm going to be buying your books here soon. Figure out just how deep this connection runs.
Well, let me just jump back
Sure.
real quick to and I will throw out there for the listeners, visit these guys on Facebook. There's some great resources on their website. But one of the things that I noticed, I saw some of the videos that Scott did on Facebook, and I was just blown away because I really appreciate church safety and security. I think we went through a time period, and I know the other guys will agree with this, but I think we went through a time period of, tactical training. You got to do this, and this. You got to have like a mini SWAT team responding. And I think one of the things from day one that we've pushed and we've trumpeted is just that, if you can't, and I hate to say it this bluntly, but if you can't pray with your team, if you can't pray with someone in the church, if you can't witness to someone, then the type of holster that you use doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. And we've taken over the last year. It's interesting. We've taken some slack for that. Obviously, because there are folks out there that just believe 100% that church security should be, and we embrace training too. That's a great thing. All of us are always trying to learn more and drive folks to learn more and that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, if I'm leading and I'm doing it with Matthew 28 in my mind, then I'm not looking at tomorrow. I'm looking further out. I'm looking at, what's this ministry really doing? How is this ministry really being effective in the church? And, that's just something that we encourage. Obviously, we encourage and try and get people to consider.
Yeah. I've had opportunities to share the gospel at my church that I would not have had if I weren't on duty with safety team.
Amen.
And that is with both an ex-con that was wandering the foyer, asking a lot of questions that weren't necessarily related to the gospel, but he was willing to sit down and chat for a few minutes, and that's with police officers that I've been working with too here at the church, and it's just there's somebody else on the team will have your back if you need to stop for a few minutes and have a deep conversation with somebody. I really believe in that, and that's how we're set up to work is just to always be alert for those opportunities right there
for sure.
As the safety team on duty during the church gathering, and then it goes on beyond that through running through your church's outreach ministries, through its missions. We see the safety team as being the core of a security ministry, but we definitely promote some sort of policy foundation. Yeah, and that policy foundation means that the pastors, the elders, the deacons, whoever the decision makers are, they're involved in setting the table for what is this ministry, what's its scope, what is everybody's responsibility in especially child protection. So child protection is a factor of this, and then something that I desire to see. I'm still aspiring to with my own team here, trying to develop our own team. Is moving us beyond Sunday morning patrol to we are the in-house subject matter experts who are teaching our congregation as they're interested. We're not cramming any of this down our throats, but we want to teach our congregation. I think Asad Ayub said something about this last week about bringing people into your trainings, your first aid training, some of your suspicious activity reporting training, things like that. And hopefully giving them some tools in their tool belt, so when somebody else comes along and tries to mobilize them for missions, they feel like they're better equipped, and those fear barriers may be a little bit lower than otherwise if they had not, if somebody hadn't reached out to teach them about security in the context of ministry here at home.
Mm.
Yeah, there's a great point. We try to talk through the idea that the pastors and leadership in every case are either consulted or informed. Mm-hmm. And we don't necessarily consult them on all decisions, that we've been empowered to make certain calls and certain decisions without having to loop them in. Certainly on a Sunday morning, the last thing that we're trying to do is sack the quarterback when he's about to speak. And I think that's one of those approaches that you got to look at that and make sure that ahead of time you're planning out and understand what you have authority to be able to do ahead of time. Granted, in the moment that may flex, but always in those cases, they're not always consulted for the answer. They just may be informed after the fact.
Well, and real quick, I want to go back to the community outreach and being involved with other ministries, and then we'll jump to our break. And I know when we come back, I know Paul is like chomping at the bit to jump in, but it makes a difference. There's a way to minister, there's a way to be safe and secure, and mitigate threats, and not be standing there. Our church is doing and I know a lot of churches out there are doing Easter egg hunts and getting into Easter type things. You can stand there and you can be the safety team or security team can be warm and welcoming to folks and ministering to folks without and still doing, still looking for red flags, still looking for all that stuff that you would, doesn't look right, etc. That you would do that, but taking it a step further, it builds credibility, because then you go beyond, to Mike's point, you go beyond the ability of being a job. You incorporate the idea of a ministry. You're doing something that branches out, that supports other ministries in the church, and you're building credibility between the pastors, the leadership, and the folks around you, so that they know that you're not just there to play security, or you're not just there to be a security guard, but that you're actively involved in the ministry and the mission and the purpose of the church. And, as people embrace that ideology over, hey, we just have security guards, that are guarding us, amazing things can happen. I've seen churches get safety budgets that now all of a sudden, like you said, JD, all of a sudden a deacon is now saying, hey, I want to be over safety and security in my, in your church. And so different things like that happen. And it's because we've established that credibility, and we've built into that foundation of saying this is a ministry before it's, before it's just a security job. So it's interesting stuff. We got to go to a quick break, and we will be right back with you. So don't go anywhere, and including you, Paul, stay there. Don't disappear. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
With over 50 years of experience with religious and nonprofit organizations, Thomas Alexander Insurance & Associates understands that your congregation is different from a traditional business. We're here to fulfill your needs, coming to you while creating a personal plan for your budget and size. From your local community to around the globe, we are advocates for you. Thomas Alexander Insurance & Associates, your partner in service.
The worst has happened. Evil has invaded the sanctuary. Lives were ended, and the life of every surviving member of your church has changed forever. There will be funerals to attend. The grieving and the counseling will go on for years to come. You may even lose church members, especially if your pastor was killed during the attack. But what if I told you that all of this could have been prevented with the proper training? That your church could learn how to secure its campus and how to see the signs of an attack before it happens. At Shield Force International, we will teach you the skills you need to protect your church, to protect your children, to mitigate and even eliminate would-be threats to your church body, all before it happens. We can no longer pretend that evil doesn't exist, or that churches aren't targets.
Attacks against churches and pastors are on the rise. Call or visit us online for a free consultation.
Even at church, bad things can happen. Medical emergencies, active shooters, predators, even domestic disputes. Is your church, is your ministry, is your sanctuary prepared? Do you have a safety or security team? Find out how you can be with James McGarvey's new book, The Case for Church Safety and Security. James McGarvey's experience and training, along with a biblical foundation, bring much needed information in today's trying times. It offers a true biblical perspective for starting, keeping, and growing a safety or security ministry in your church or place of worship. The Case for Church Safety and Security, a brand new book, includes a special foreword by Frank Pomeroy, the pastor at the First Baptist Church, Sutherland Springs, Texas, where they experienced the worst active shooter in U.S. history. This compelling book shares insight on preparing yourself and your church from potential threats with a biblical worldview. Start your journey to a more secure ministry and worship freely, knowing you're safe. Get more information now at churchsafetyguys.com and pick up your copy today. Church Safety Guys is a nonprofit organization dedicated to help inspire, influence, and impact church safety and security teams. We are about all things church safety and security, which starts with a ministry mindset and a servant's heart. We're protectors, guardians, ambassadors, and shepherds. We help church and place of worship safety and security teams all over the United States through our broadcasts, online communities, conferences, trainings, resources, and products. Help us reach more churches in impactful ways by considering becoming a monthly ministry partner. $2, $5, $20 a month will help us continue to provide these resources.
All right, so we're back. You're listening to the Church Safety Guys on Sunday night. Thank you for joining us. And if you're watching this at a later time on YouTube, go ahead and click the like and subscribe in the lower right-hand corner. As always, you can always visit our website at churchsafetyguys.com for past episodes. We actually have a new page up there on the website where you can watch this week's episode that we've done, or the most recent episode, and kind of get the cliff notes of it. So any links that we put in the comments, you can grab that now and follow up at a later time. So we're talking to JD from Concilium, and I know we're talking about church safety and discipleship, and I know Paul's been eagerly awaiting the opportunity to jump in, so I'll turn it over to him.
You know, the thing, JD, that I'm really excited about is church safety is coming of age. It started off with churches 20, 25 years ago in the modern era. And now we're seeing folks like yourself who I'm just rocking over here because you're talking about, hey, let's lead with discipleship. Let's lead with a servant's heart. And, you know, we focus too much of the time on the fact that, you know, well, here's the split times on my double tap from concealment. Hey, that's great. That's good. That's a good thing. But that's not going to help the little old lady in that's trying to walk up the steps, or that's not going to help the person who's crying outside of the church sitting there. And we have to be ready to go at a moment's notice with either the salvation plan or to lay our lives down. And we had a day that had we only had a security mindset, It could have gone very badly years ago. We had a lady, she does a slide stop at about 40, 50 miles an hour right outside the church doors. One of my guys is like, Paul, I need you at the lobby doors now. And I come around the corner, and he goes, this lady just did a slide stop by the doors. And I put my foot against it, locked the door, and she comes running around the corner, empty-handed, look of panic on her face. I open the door and I step out, and she's like, this really bad thing happened and I need somebody to pray with me right now. And I'm like, let's do it. And we just stood right there and prayed with her. We got a member of our ministry team, but it just easily could have been a smash and grab. And we have to be ready to go either way at a moment's notice. A friend of mine's church, he talked about the fact that two people stood up and briskly began to walk down the center aisle towards the stage. His team met them at the bottom of the steps. The pastor had forgotten to tell them, hey, I'm going to call these people up out of the crowd. And so with zero warning, and so as they met them at the bottom of the steps, they were then greeted by the security team members, who thought very quickly and just took their arms and helped them up the steps. And so going back to go forward, church safety is coming of age. And I love what you were talking about, because OPSEC is so important within a church, and people don't understand there's so much more to just church safety than we locked all the doors except this one and we funnel people in. And people are starting to realize, let's not leave a church directory with cell phone numbers and email addresses and people's home addresses laying in the lobby, or put it on our website. Let's not put pictorial church directories on our website of all of our members, or let's not announce that we're going to Darfur or to Haiti. Let's not announce on social media. Let's not tell Boko Haram we're coming.
Putting my international analyst hat back on, there have been churches before who have refused to remove the name of a missionary in a sensitive country who was getting into hot water, who's being targeted by a jihadist organization, and that the sending organization was trying to get a hold of the church and say, hey, take their name off, and the church would not do it. So then I'm writing a report on this, sanitizing all of the specific details, but I'm writing a report about this and sending it out to my audience, saying, beware, this particular country is not something that most people think of as being sensitive, but there are jihadists in this country that are active, and in this case they are harassing and potentially targeting some Christian workers, and there's a church that's not cooperating with their OPSEC.
I want to chase that for 1 second, because you said something that's a gold nugget, and I want people to think about this. So I don't want to miss this. What he just said, if you're listening at home, is so important, because not just your social media and not just your website, but guys, we're live broadcasting. And so now we have a missionary couple come in. They're from a non-pervasive environment. Maybe they're there as ESL teachers. They're teaching English as a second language. And when they come here from these environments and they step up on stage and they say, please do not record this, audio or video, they're serious, because their lives could be in danger. They could be jailed. They could be targeted by terrorist organizations. And now whatever we say is being preserved on a live stream that's probably going to YouTube. It's probably being preserved on Facebook. And guys, the same type of searches that JD is doing to compile lists to protect people, these terror organizations, they're doing their due diligence and they're doing their homework to try to hurt innocent people. So I don't want to miss that. That OPSEC is really important.
I want to jump into that real quick too, Paul. And we did a class. I did a class, I think, in June or July last year, for our group for churches that were interested on evaluating social media and doing risk assessments or threat assessments on, just taking simple things like Instagram, Facebook, and looking at, when they have a security threat, right, to do, because you can find a lot of information and never spend a dime with Google, right? And what I always find interesting is that people, a lot of churches have that attitude. Well, it's not gonna, it doesn't matter. It's okay. I can record this video and post this video on my church's activity while I'm down here, and I can find Wi-Fi and connect to Facebook and do that sort of thing. But think about it this way. If it's easy for you to find out information on something, how easy is it for someone else to? and you don't have to be, and you can send the conspiracy emails to Paul. He'll be accepting all of my conspiracy hate.
My email address is james.mcgarvey at.
Well, but there's wisdom, and I like to think, and that's what I say. I'm not a big conspiracy theorist, but there is wisdom in being smart and realizing that, if you can go on and see what your church is doing in Haiti or in other countries to follow them, it's awesome that they're going, but there are other people that can access that as well. And you need to be cautious and careful who can see what's, who can see what's going on. So I'll toss it back to you, because I know you had some thoughts.
Just really, really quickly, because this could be its whole own episode, guys. And I could see this coming down the pipe, JD. I think we'd love to have you back. But this is so important. Years ago, I got a panic call from my parents, and they said, Paul, IT guy, we need you over the house now. And my younger sister had a friend who in Dallas from Southwest Missouri. They had been talking in an ICQ chat that dates the conversation a little. And this young lady had said, well, guys, I've decided to kill myself. It's been fun, and signed off. And so I rushed over there, and in about a 15-minute period, garnering what we would now call like a type of open source intelligence gathering. Unfortunately, it's the same kind of intelligence gathering that pedophiles do, and traffickers do, and terrorists do, and thieves do. I was able to start asking questions, and we triangulated her position based on innocuous sounding conversations. We had it down to 3 people, to 3 dads that we knew the last name of the girl, but not the dad's first name. And we had it triangulated down in about 15 minutes, and we figured out that there was a park that was within a walking distance. We had the address and a phone number, and my dad called, and they were able to rush up there and kick the girl's door in. She was trying to take pills and overdose. This stuff happens, and if the good guys can do it, the bad guys are doing it. And most of the time, I think you had said naive, Mike, or maybe it was you, JD, that was talking about being naive.
Yeah,
we've got to stop being naive. So anyway,
right. No, and that's a great example of spontaneous intelligence gathering on your own. Not to. It's kind of interesting. I'll choose my words carefully here, so as not to give any confusion. But you weren't trying to protect a group of people. You were proactively, reacting to the situation, but taking positive action to protect an individual. And that may be a good way for me to bounce the subject of doing open source intelligence, not just online research, but talking about just collating everything you already know about the place where you live, your city, your neighborhood, your community, your metro area, the community that surrounds the church, the community that the church is there to serve, and collating all that information you already know, going out and trying to learn more. Like what I did when I realized that as a strategic open source intel analyst focused on global issues, that I needed a knowledge base to apply my analytical methods locally. I started going on ride-alongs. I started talking with my police friends and learning more about the security landscape, is what I call it, which it's an IT security term too, but I think of it more in the human sense of the people, the organizations, the structures, the factors in your community that either cause, prevent, respond to, or punish harm and loss. So your justice system, the literal thin blue line, the different organizations and people that back the thin blue line, the order versus chaos, those broad categories, what does that look like in your community? And then the missional thing about this is that once you start to have a good picture of that, then you have a very good window. It's not the only window, but a very good window into what is the spiritual need in your community.
Absolutely.
And then once you've got that knowledge, then the question becomes, well, what is your church going to do about it? And so
it's interesting.
Intelligence analysis for the sake of protecting your church turns into field research for this is what lostness looks like in our community, and here are some ways that we can start reaching out and start pursuing the Great Commission in different ways right where we live.
This is powerful.
It's interesting. Yeah. We're my family and I are part of a church plant. The church that we've been attending is doing another, is basically planting another church on the northwest side of Columbus. And it's funny you bring that up, because that's something we're doing right now, is looking at the needs of the community, the demographic of the community, and really analyzing everything. And it's not to be necessarily a profiling way, but one of the biggest things that we've come up with as needs in that community is mental health and counseling and supporting families. It's a big family community. And so, if you, and I'll throw this out there for the folks, the churches that are listening, it doesn't matter where your church is. That's information that's free that you can access. You can get from surveys, from on resources online, and you really need to know what's around you, even from a security and safety standpoint. But the reality of knowing, okay, one street over, we have this demographic, or we have this possible threat, or maybe we're off of 33 and 270. 33 in Ohio is a massive trafficking corridor for West Virginia and Kentucky. And so, understanding that and understanding, your demographics in your area is a big deal, because that, like you said, JD, I mean, that tells you where you're going to place your resources for ministry, or what things you should consider, for sure.
Amen.
It can also identify from that perspective, if you don't recognize a need in your community and you're not doing anything to solve or cater for that, you can bring the wrath of somebody that says, why aren't you helping me? And so in a way, just shoring up the offering and scope of what you're trying to do in your community is actually a form of protection for your church, because you're recognizing the need, you're hearing that there's hurting, and you're doing something about it.
Yeah, the more I studied security, the more I realize I'm studying sin and its effects. Yeah,
we're in a corridor as well. I think, as you, James, we have a north-south corridor from a trafficking perspective, and one of the largest refuge areas for trafficked women that have gotten rescued and brought out is just outside the Austin, Texas area. And there's a lot that happens here too.
I was just going to say, we're getting a bit of a delay, but I want to go back to, because JD just mentioned something. Studying, can you say that again, sir? Studying security?
The more I've studied security, the more I realize that I'm studying sin and its effects.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That's a gold nugget right there.
Yeah.
And that's an important thing, because that also, and I love that, because it ties into the ideology that, our mission, our ministry, safety or security, is best grown, best supported, best protected with prayer, right? And if you can understand that it is a result of sin, then you understand that this battle, the battle of keeping folks safe and secure, isn't of this world. And that's, again, that's just a wow. Yeah, we're going to have to come. That's a whole nother episode.
I can see guys, us circling back around to this. And if you're watching this later, comment, whatever platform you're on, comment and send us feedback, because it helps us to come up with ideas. Church safety is a very robust thing, and it's a very full fleshed out thing that people don't always think about. We're just really starting to unfold it, and a lot of churches have just landed and gone, we have a tourniquet and we have a little bit of a med bag, and 3 guys have got guns, and we're talking about an AED, and they're catching up from behind the curve. But thanks to moments like this, JD, to conversations, James, Mike, like this, we're going to shorten that learning curve. I mean, we're going to shorten that learning curve. And I'm really excited about moments like this, because if we can be as innocent as doves, but as shrewd as vipers, and understand, like what you were talking about, collating all that material, JD, and distilling it down into a bottom line that says, this is happening right now. People are targeting your church, and they're calling and they're saying, "Hey, JD, my name is Paul. Pastor James and Pastor Mike wanted me to call and let you know we got a drive going on right now. The average donation is about $100, and we're going to send some kids to a really neat summer camp, and we can take Visa or MasterCard right over the phone." And with spoofing your phone number and voice over IP, I could be in Bangladesh, and people don't understand that you can walk into a church and gather intel, proverbially by picking up just that church directory, and it can be just that easy, and that's happening. But a lot of people don't know about it. So I mean, this kind of intel. Imagine a church of 600 people, and you've called me and you knew the names of my pastors. And you were talking, oh, it's for the kids. Oh my gosh, honey, get the check, get the check card. And next thing you know, they've been ripped off. Yeah. There's a lot to this.
It's the church industry, if you will, if you want to call it an industry, but the church, from that perspective, is one of the few areas that really don't have any prescriptive guidance around personally identifiable information, PII. They don't have a policy about keeping that under lock and key, or having staff understand that what is this and how do you handle it? What's the procedure for keeping it secure, both digitally as well as physically? You can't just wander into somebody's office and pick something off the desk, as we talked about earlier, but it's also off their website and other pieces. So there's areas not just about, all right, how do you staff that door, or how do you handle this incident, or how do you respond to that? But literally maturity in general of how do we take volunteers up a level so that we're applying principles in our churches and we're treating it like we would our job, not just our volunteer gig on the weekend.
Cool. So James, I know we're running close to time, and James has the unfortunate duty of being the timekeeper.
That's one of the things I hate about my job. Because I would love to, I'd love to continue to go on, but I would like to give you, JD, the opportunity, because I know you guys do classes. Your website has classes listed. So I want to give you an opportunity to throw that out there and do a plug for that for folks that are interested in where you're based out of and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so we're based out of Kansas City, but most of us actually don't live in Kansas City. So we're all over the country, and when you do go to our website, the classes on the calendar there are all the classes for the missionaries. If you're interested in a church class, just send us an email at info@concilium.us, and we'll get back to you about the church training. We have two different types of analytical subscriptions for OSINT, and really the open source intelligence is more the international focus study of terrorism, conflict, and crime. That's for mission organizations or for churches that are involved in full-time sending or short-term trips. But then Insight Digest is our monthly product that's specifically geared towards church security. And that's much less intelligence than it is very brief case studies of recent incidents, usually from the past month, 6 to 10 every month that we cover, along with articles on security in the context of ministry, on how to analyze your community, how to learn about the security landscape, how to teach people suspicious activity reporting, how to get your feet wet in the very complex and professional field of behavioral threat assessment, recognizing early signs that somebody may be inside your church, maybe it's somebody associated with somebody with your church is moving along the pathway to violence, maybe eventually looking to target your church, maybe eventually looking to target somebody in the community. Either way, if you're in a position to pick up on the cues, well, the great thing about being in a church is that you've got an opportunity to trigger ministry intervention before a law enforcement intervention becomes necessary. And not saying don't go ahead and loop in law enforcement, just saying that churches are set up, or should be set up, for bearing people's burdens and for getting pastors involved in counseling people through very difficult, hard times, and hopefully unraveling some of the triggers and motives that might eventually mature into violent intent in actual planning, actual attack cycle behavior, where then your safety team is picking up on the surveillance, is picking up on the elicitation, the inappropriate questioning about your tests and probes of security, all of that stuff. The pathway to violence eventually morphs into the attack cycle, and by the time you get to the attack cycle, you're dealing with somebody who's already chosen to act and is looking for a target. Anyway, all of that are things that we cover in Insight Digest. And then we are also setting up, we have a separate LLC that is set up to handle crisis management consultation, policy development, some of the more hard skills of church security, of your tactics and procedures. And then also something I'm excited about is one of our longtime friends in the global missions community, retired law enforcement with decades of experience in child abuse investigations, both in law enforcement and as a private investigator, is joining us. And that's something that Concilium.global will be able to offer. That's the LLC that's separate from the nonprofit. So Concilium.us is the nonprofit. Concilium Church Safety is our church-focused Facebook page, and then Concilium.global is the LLC.
Awesome. Yeah, we appreciate you being able to coordinate with us and come on the show tonight. I know we could probably talk for another hour about about some of the ministry things and ministry focus. So yeah, check out their website. I've gone through some of the things JD has sent me. Just some of their emails, and it's awesome resources. I mean, they put a lot of time and energy and effort into doing a quality product. So definitely check out their website and reach out to them if you have questions. But we'll have to, like I said, we'll have to have you on in the near future again and chat more about that if you're willing. If you didn't get irritated by Paul's jokes, I say that to all of our guests. So
yeah, and backstage, what you, the viewers at home, don't get to see is I usually have some pretty cheesy one-liners going before we even get started. So. Right. So, is there anything else you gents want to cover on the way out? Mention the new book or anything before I pray us out? Or Mike, would you like to pray us out tonight?
Either way, up to you, sir.
Well, Mike wants 30 seconds to talk about the book. So
why don't you take the next 30 seconds and I'll chase it with a prayer.
All right. Well, for those that haven't seen, we have launched another book. We have quite a few on our bookshelf now out by Church Safety Guys, but James and I collaborated on a book that really is designed to help you look at where do you go with your teams and take them beyond Sunday mornings. It's not just about showing up, putting on a badge, handing out some tasks, and yelling go. It literally is more beyond that. How do you work with your teams? And there is a life cycle. There's a process. There's a continual cycle that you can work with your team members to make sure that you're engaging them, make sure you're training them correctly, make sure you're doing things to retain them, but also focusing on things like renewal and recruitment and gratitude and vision. There's so many different parts of it, but it's part of what we call the church safety and security life cycle, and that's part of our new book called Engage, Train, Retain.
Amen.
That was a pretty good
it was good quite
snapshot summary in 30 seconds. I was looking at my clock. I didn't think you could do it, Mike.
Yeah, that's a great dust jacket cover. Well, gents, I'm going to pray us out real quick, and JD, we're going to have to have you back on. So, Heavenly Father, Lord God, I'm reminded tonight of the Apostle Paul and a group of evil men that got together in a cabal that they vowed that they would murder him, Lord God. And you used a young man that was forewarned, and Lord God, you used a very physical means do a very supernatural thing and protect the Apostle Paul to continue his ministry. And Lord God, this is the very kind of thing, Lord God, the commander sent a small army to protect the Apostle Paul while he was taken from one place to another, Lord God. And yes, what we do is very spiritual, and the battles that we fight are spiritual, Lord God, but there are so many times that you use earthly means, gathering information and what have you, to bring together to make sure that children are loved on, that the gospel is preached to the poor, Lord God. That is the crux of ministry. And I thank you for moments like these, for these men. I ask that you would guide, bless, and protect them, that you give them the desires of their heart. In your son Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. So again, thanks for joining us. We will see you guys next Sunday night. I believe, knock on wood, we're going to talk about some things next week that you can do to be prepared for Easter this year for safety and security. And right now, we are actually working with John Correa of Active Self-Protection. He will be joining us, and looking forward to chatting with him. So you don't want to miss it. And then, as always, feel free to visit churchsafetyguys.com for more information, or if we can help in any way, feel free to reach out through Facebook, social media, or our website, and we'd love to help you. So take care, guys. Have a great week. God bless.
Thank you for joining the Church Safety Guys broadcast. We hope that you found it informative, and we appreciate your feedback. Looking for ways you can help us reach more churches? Share our broadcast with your teams. Consider becoming a monthly ministry partner. Like and share our page, and join the discussion in our Facebook groups. Visit our website at churchsafetyguys.com for other great resources. Remember to keep a servant's heart, a mindset of ministry, and Semper Disciplina. Always be training. Have a blessed week.